Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. Season 5, Episode 41. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion. Where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. Haven't done a segment on religion in a while. Why not break out Revelation? I don't think any of us could have imagined, even 10 years ago, that there would be talk of assigning every person on planet Earth a digital ID. Let's revisit some scripture, shall we? Thank you to all of my longtime listeners. If you're new to the podcast, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star, write a review, send to friends and enemies far and wide. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is commercial free. If you'd like to keep it that way, continue to encourage me to be the most inept person to ever navigate social media. But if in the off chance that this podcast catches fire, you might want to go to Patreon, give up a little bit of your Skrilla, is that how you say it? Because I need those ad dollars. Let's go.
Act 1, the Book of Revelation, and how you can be prohibited from buying and selling.
I haven't done a religious segment in a long time, and I didn't feel compelled to do one. I wasn't called to do it. But I came across a series of videos after the acquisition of CBS News by Paramount, which was facilitated by Skydance. And to give you an idea about how that all plays together, Skydance is this media company that's owned by David Ellison, which is Larry Ellison's son. Who is Larry Ellison? He is the CEO of Oracle, and he also owns Paramount, which, because of this deal where Skydance is acquiring Paramount and CBS News, now Ellison is in this position of power over CBS News, and it turns out that the acquisition of TikTok that President Trump has been pushing to facilitate or at least accommodate the U.S. Congress that basically outlawed TikTok, he's pushing that sale to David Ellison, Larry Ellison's son. As part of this media empire, Skydance will have an ownership interest, if not outright ownership, of TikTok, and will also own CBS News. There is a lot of editorial control that one can exert when you own a legacy news media outlet like CBS News, and you own a new medium, a 21st century social media medium like TikTok, where a lot of younger people and older people alike, but mostly younger people, get their news. As owner of Oracle, Larry Ellison has sunk hundreds of billions of dollars, that's not an exaggeration, hundreds of billions of dollars into artificial intelligence, into AI. And he's a huge proponent of AI dominating not only the tech sector, not only the business sector, but to dominate how government actually operates in the 21st and maybe the 22nd century. How does government render services to its citizenry? In Larry Ellison's mind, it's going to be through AI, through artificial intelligence. About 7 months ago, there was this thing called the World Economic Summit, and it was held in UAE, the United Arab Emirates. One of the keynote speakers, well, it wasn't a speaker as much as it was a conversation, was between Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of Britain, and Larry Ellison in his role, in his capacity as CEO of Oracle. And they were having a conversation about how artificial intelligence will be leveraged in the coming years to render better services to the people of any government that is willing to use it, to employ it, to implement it. What Ellison stressed was that in order for artificial intelligence to be effective in this capacity, in making government more efficient and making the outcomes for its citizens better, the artificial intelligence needed all of the data that the government had available to it. For example, Ellison talked about healthcare outcomes. In order for artificial intelligence to be effective at providing more efficient, more affordable, and better healthcare outcomes, AI needed all the data. And that was how it was left. Now, if you think about that, dear listener, what does that mean? That means that artificial intelligence needs all of your personal health information, your medical history. But more than that, all of your genealogical data. They're going to have a blood sample. They're going to have DNA. They're going to have everything. It is sold to us that with all of that information, with all of that data, artificial intelligence is going to be able to do things that we've never been able to do as human beings in offering, in this example, better healthcare outcomes. During the course of this conversation, which you can find on the YouTube, I think you just type in World Economic Summit, Larry Ellison, and the video will come right up. And it's more an interview between Tony Blair and Larry Ellison, who's not present. He's on a virtual conference call with Tony Blair, who's present at the event. And it's just a conversation where Tony Blair is asking him these questions and he's providing these answers. During the course of this question and answer session, if you want to call it that, the term digital identification is used numerous times. Tony Blair uses this term. Larry Ellison uses this term. I've heard this term used in more conspiratorial, more nefarious terms as a credit score or a social credit score. In other words, you're assigning to a person a number, and that number is going to be associated with all of that person's data and how they are interacting with the government. And when you hear these conversations, it's as benign as, well, has this person paid their taxes? If they have, are they entitled to a refund? Does this person need a new driver's license from the Department of Motor Vehicles? Can that be handled in a way that doesn't require this person to have to present to an actual facility? All of these things would be governed by a number that you would be assigned, and that all of your data would be included, or would be associated rather, with that number. I did a segment on this earlier this year, this company Palantir that's taken all of the government's data, which means all of the data the government has on us, and is now crunching it, and we are headed towards what is being sold to us as an AI fantasy world where all of the government services that we would require would be rendered to us much more efficiently with much better outcomes. Let's switch gears, shall we? I grew up in the South. Some people don't consider Richmond, Virginia the South, but if you've ever lived in Richmond, Virginia, and you've ever spent any time in Richmond, Virginia, oh, it's the South. Richmond being a bigger city, you have all the face under the rainbow. You have Judaism, you have Islam, you certainly have Christianity, you may even have some random Hindus, you may have yourself some Buddhists. But when it comes to Christianity, you also have all of the Christian sects, all the Christian faiths under the rainbow. But in particular, you have yourself the Baptists and the Methodists. You have a number of different sects of evangelicals. I have been to many an evangelical church in the state of Virginia, state of Tennessee, state of Georgia, state of Florida, for a sundry reasons that I will not go into right now. One of the things that always stood out to me about evangelical preaching versus what I grew up in, Catholic preaching, was how emotional the scripture was made during the course of a sermon. Many of the things that are discussed are described in such vivid detail. This can be very powerful as a message. It does require the right messenger, but given some of the colorful language, the colorful depictions in the Bible, it can also be quite off-putting because it's difficult to imagine how certain things in the Bible could have occurred, did occur, or will occur based on this colorful, this vivid language. Let's talk about one of the books that I've always been the most skeptical about because it is the most difficult to digest, no matter how faithful you are a Christian. It's the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation can be particularly difficult to digest in the 21st century, given some of the depictions, well, many of the depictions on how the end of the world is going to befall us. And yes, when it comes to a colorful rant from an evangelical preacher, you can see how, particularly in a revival type environment, it would be powerful to hear these passages be read out loud where you're talking about a dragon and then a beast coming out of the sea. It's got 7 heads, 10 horns. The beast looked like a leopard. His feet were like those of a bear and his mouth like that of a lion. And I'm not trying to make light of what it says in the Bible, but it's so fantastic that it not only lends itself to scrutiny, but you can also see how a passionate preacher preaching this, able to elicit all of these things in our imagination, helping to conjure up fear. I mean, fear is a great motivating factor. It always struck me as difficult to swallow that, let's say the world was coming to an end, that it would be as graphic and would meet these same stories as were told in the book of Revelation. This stuff seems so fantastic that you can't believe that it would actually happen. And when you look at how society is advancing, particularly with technology, you wonder how any of this could be realized in the modern age, in the 21st century. But there is a passage at the end of Revelation in chapter 13 that I won't go as far to say that I ignored, but because it receives so little fanfare in the theater that is the book of Revelation, a lot of people don't remember or realize even that it's part of the prophecy. The book of Revelation, chapter 13, from the New American Standard Translation, starting on line 16. And he causes all, he being the beast, he causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, and the free and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, and he decrees that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Evangelical preachers wouldn't touch the supposition, how that would happen. They would say it. They would recite the scripture, but there was no supposition as to how that could actually come to fruition. Do you see where I'm going with this, dear listener? I'm not the only one who's saying this. In fact, what struck me is that this is now starting to make its way in certain Christian circles on social media, that this advent of a social credit score or a digital identification code is not the hearkening of the end of the world, but if the infrastructure needed to be created whereby each person was assigned a number, this is it. This is not to say that Larry Ellison or David Ellison are the Antichrist or are hearkening the end of the world, but you're seeing with your 2 eyes in real time how the infrastructure would be built so that each one of us, maybe willingly so, would be assigned a number that would be controlled by governments under the auspice that we're providing more efficient and more effective services that then could be in some future capacity, in some future reality, manipulated by a single entity. This isn't stuff coming out of the sea. This isn't 4 horsemen riding. This isn't any of the fantastic imagery that's set forth in Revelation. It's one of these strange, almost throwaway passages that, when you think about it, getting on the wrong side of the government, when you've got a number assigned to you, and we live in a digital economy, it would be very easy to control you whether or not you were able to buy things or sell things. And what have I been saying on this podcast? For any of you that have been listening for any period of time, this isn't going to be something that is going to be forced upon us. We are not going to be subjugated and made to take a number. Many of us will go willingly. We will want to participate in a digital society, in e-commerce in the 21st or maybe the 22nd century. We're not going to resist the assignment of this number. We are going to welcome it, just like we welcomed practically every other electronic intrusion into our lives. Again, why? Under the auspice of what? This is going to make your life easier, and you are going to be more productive. You're going to live a better life with this technology. I know I don't have a large audience, but who among you who is listening to this feels like all of this technology has made your life better? If you had pointed out this passage, Revelations 13, 16, and 17, if you pointed out this passage to me 15 years ago, even with how much technology was changing, I still would have said it's absolutely asinine. I can't imagine how it would actually happen. It is one of many fantastic images that is conjured up in the book of Revelation. And this isn't me saying I don't believe in the book of Revelation. I have always looked at these things metaphorically. But seeing how things have changed, even over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, it's frightening how this passage in Scripture seems now so possible. And not from a metaphorical standpoint, it seems possible in the real world. I can't say this profusely enough. This is not to cast aspersions on anyone involved in AI, particularly Larry or David Ellison. You've heard it said before, dear listener, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They may have the best of intentions, but am I the only one that doesn't see that the architecture for something as fantastic as one single person or one single entity being able to control whether or not the world's population is able to buy or sell is now being constructed and sold to us as something that we should welcome? And while we may want to question the imagery of there being this number on our wrist, our right wrist, or on our forehead, think about the technology that's being introduced. Elon wants to put chips into people, and there are people who want to have chips put into them. You don't know that it won't be some sort of device that perhaps is the 20th iteration of the current Apple Watch that provides all of the same data metrics and all of the same information and all of the same advice. And instead of being powered externally, it's powered through you, through the kinetic energy that flows through your body. I'm not one of these people who thinks that Jesus is going to come knocking on the door of the world anytime soon. But it did get me thinking. This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.